Ravencroft Beach was calm, as it always was, on the island of Serenity's edge. Rubius stood, barefoot, at the shoreline, letting the tide creep over his toes and retreat again. The ocean breeze pressed gently against his face, and for a moment he allowed himself to breathe it in as though it were medicine. The warmth of the sand shifted beneath his feet, grounding him, reminding him that this place was real, that it still held. Serenity's edge was more than land and stone. It was a promise. Behind him, the island stirred. Somewhere up the beach, a child laughed. A sound followed by a brief shimmer of light as the boy's magic flared instinctively before being gently corrected by an unseen hand. Rubius smiled despite himself. No shouting, no punishment, just guidance. That was the way here. Some were born to the island. Others arrived frightened and broken, fleeing places where magic was feared or hunted. And then there were those who came without knowing why, drawn across the sea by a pull they could not name. All of them felt it eventually, the sense that Serenity's edge stood between what was and what might yet be. The old texts called it a barrier, a living one. If it ever failed, the world beyond the horizon would change forever. Rubius turned away from the sea and toward the town, his expression darkening as the familiar weight of responsibility settled on his shoulders. He had worn that weight a long time now. Long enough that even he sometimes forgot just how long. Edmund Ravencroft had founded the island centuries ago, carving sanctuary from myth and ruin. Rubius had been little more than a boy then, too young to understand the arguments whispered behind closed doors, but old enough to remember the look in Edmund's eyes the night the wards were raised. Fear sharpened by certainty. When leadership passed to him, Rubius had accepted it without hesitation. He enjoyed the work, protecting the vulnerable, teaching restraint alongside power, watching generations grow old while he remained, unchanged, a quiet constant in an uncertain world. Until recently. Rubius exhaled, slowly, slid his sandals back onto his feet, and began the walk into town. The streets were alive with colour and motion, vendors calling out, students hurrying towards lessons, spells flickering briefly before being folded back into nothing. To anyone else, it would have looked like peace. But as he crossed the threshold from sand to stone, a chill ran down through him that had nothing to do with the sea. Somewhere deep beneath the island, something shifted, subtle, almost imperceptible. The barrier still stood. Yet, for the first time, in longer than Rubius cared to remember, he found himself wondering how long it would hold. As Rubius entered the town, the calm he had left behind on the beach gave way to noise and motion. In the market square, vendors were shouting prices, students were weaving through the crowd, but at its centre, chaos had taken hold. Two young students stood opposite one another, faces flushed with anger, hands crackling with unshaped magic. Their spells were wild things. Bolts of energy flew wide, one slamming into the other boy and sending him skidding across the cobbles, another tearing through a fishmonger's stall in a burst of splintered wood and scales. A third shot clipped a nearby tree, scorching bark and leaves alike.